You and I both care deeply about our planet, its humanity, and its environment, including animals. This mutual caring is essential to our divine resonant tantric partnership, which in politics is vitally important. I believe that for our partnership to work, we need to have political harmony, either immediately or after as much caring and searching discussion as we need to fully understand each other's views. So I'll tell you here a bit more about my own political positions. I care both passionately and compassionately for other people, including their lives, liberty, health, prosperity, and happiness. I've studied political theories. No, you haven't. You Googled stuff. The law, including the U.S. Constitution. You Googled the U.S. Constitution. Stop making yourself sound like you... No, never mind. William knows everything. I forgot. We're having delusions of grandeur right now. I'm sorry. History, current events, psychology, economics, human nature, the dynamics of power. I oppose big government, political correctness, and the leftist/socialist agenda generally embraced by the Democratic Party, which claims to be compassionate, but in reality is the opposite. I also oppose the Republican in name of only agenda advanced for the past 50 years by those who were in control of the Republican Party until the election of Trump, who is not a Reno. I'm gonna be honest, I've not heard this word before. Maybe I've heard it, I just don't know what it means. So Republican in name only is a pejorative term used by conservative members of the United States Republican Party to describe Republicans whose political views or actions they consider insufficiently conservative. The acronym emerged in the 1990s. Okay, so I feel like I've read this, and honestly, I know a hell of a lot about William. I wouldn't say he's conservative. I really wouldn't. I'd say he has conservative ideas, but I wouldn't assign him to a certain political party. Because it seems like he has a lot of beliefs. Even though he really cares about stuff Republicans care about, he's got a lot of beliefs that while I wouldn't say the Democrats support, the Republicans would really hate, right? You said some really wild statements about religion. And you said a lot of wild statements that I think, like, you would instead be more, like, accurately put into, like, some psycho land on the political chart instead of Republican. But regardless, I am, and many others believe that the Democrats and Renos are, in fact, two branches of the same elite globalist uniparty created by ultra-rich masterminds and kept hidden from the public. What evidence, bud? Where? How do you know? Their secret agenda of horrific evil underlies much of the massive human suffering we see in the world today. That's three objects: total control over our lives, robbing us of our wealth, and something much worse I will not write here. It has total control of your life. How could it be worse? I guess killing, what are they gonna do? They're gonna kill your soul? What the fuck does that mean, William? In a multiplicity of forms, this vastly evil corruption infects our government, political organizations, intergovernmental organizations, financial/monetary systems, our educational institutions, the sciences, the arts, many large corporations, the high-tech industry, and the mainstream media. President Trump is systematically dismantling the corruption. His courage, strength, and staggering genius overwhelm me with respect and awe. Hallelujah. President Trump is truly making America great again. As America once again shines its vast light, the world will follow. We will see unprecedented global liberty, abundance, health, peace, and happiness. I'm dumbfounded that my compassionate, peace-loving Democrat friends oppose the vision, and the very real result is already delivered. Yet apparently some would rather keep others oppressed, jobless, and impoverished than to acknowledge that Trump's unprecedented leadership lifted numbers of people from poverty to prosperity. For 2 decades, until January 2018, I harbor a combative, militant attitude towards the elitist and towards the elite globalist behind the Uniparty. I believe that we had to somehow rise up, expose them, extinguish their power, and bring them and their deep state agents to justice. Moreover, I thought this had to be done before massive human suffering could be eliminated. But then I watched the video of President Trump's speech given on January 26, 2018 in Davos, Switzerland in the World Economic Forum. Many of the global elite were in the audience. Okay, so there's this wild thing that I hear by people who are like crazy conspiracy theory guys that love Trump. If there is this massive global elite, right, that controls the entirety of the government and anything important, how the fuck did Trump become president? How the fuck is he having any impact? It's incredibly hypocritical that all of a sudden the main guy is the best guy. It's so weird. I don't get it. Alright, what's going on with this speech? He's got 2 mics, what a Chad. And I can only hear through the left one. Rump has opened his buttocks for prison bath house businesses. Alright, this is just some generic speech. I don't know if there's anything of substance in it. Trump's example of gentleness profoundly inspired me. He is overwhelming them by his goodness, and they know it. Rather than attacking them, he invites them to come and invest in America. I cried as I realized I need to be gentler with the enemies of freedom. Although his administration is systematically removing the vast corruption, it is not his first priority. Instead, he is making America great again, just as he promised. That is doing far more to reduce suffering than putting all the culprits in prison. I have learned that prosperity trumps vengeance. Profoundly inspired by President Trump's gentle example, I've now revised my own goal and vision. They're gentler and focused first on the activities that uplift people rather than attacking evils. I have learned from Trump that the very process of uplifting people disempowers the evil, because evil can only exist and survive when people are weak and ignorant. Okay, I hate William. No. Okay, so I've learned to not be a big fan of William. I think he's a big meme, but I obviously don't agree with a lot he says, and I get pissed off easy. However, I think that this is actually very nice to read, these last two paragraphs. Because I don't think he will live by example, because he just got done writing a crazy amount that's incredibly judgmental about anyone that isn't perfect or exactly what he thinks someone should be, right? And then he has this other, and I've talked about it in the other videos where it's like he constantly talks about how he loves everyone and he loves everyone unconditionally, although that's just bullshit because he'll say that in between talking shit about people. I try to hate everyone unconditionally. I think people are fucking garbage. However, I think if he truly did live by these last two paragraphs, that I wouldn't have made this video. Because it would just be a sweet old man trying to find love. And I feel like even if Trump is the topic, that doesn't really matter. Because if someone really did inspire someone to do something like that, that's quite nice. That's just not what's going on here. And I also feel like it's something nice to read to the contrary of what you see so much, right? Because I feel like so much people right now, especially politics, and I talked about it before in the other video, where I talked about why I voted for Trump in 2016, is that so much is fueled by hate. So much is fueled by fucking hate. And not that hate wasn't a factor. I think it always has and always should be. I just think it's the sole thing that exists in politics right now. It's just a complete hate and vitriol for whoever disagrees with you. I actually don't think it's that much of Trump. I don't agree with a lot of what Trump does, but I really do think that the opposition against him is far more radical than he is. I'm very sad every time I see the news, and it's just wild shit said against Trump, because I like reading the news. But that's why I use Ground. Ground's a really nice news app. You probably see people get sponsored by it, actually. I think History Channels. If you watch History Channels, you'll see they get sponsored by it. Ground is a news thing that tells you which political spectrum they're on, and I always go for the one in the center, because that means they don't give their opinion. Any opinion is naturally biased. You can't really say the news. You can't quite write an article without being biased in some way, and that's okay as long as you're open and honest about it. However, the center, what that means most of the time is that they're spitting facts. That's just kind of what I like. I just kind of like want to know what's going on. I don't really give a shit. Also, something that I wish things like Ground did, and people that say like, oh, New York Times is incredibly left-leaning, is like, I don't think New York Times is incredibly left-leaning. I get editors have a great deal of impact, but I feel like the person who wrote it and the person who edited it are really important, and that should be open. And then those people should be open about their political beliefs. Because I think far beyond even what the actual publication tendency towards, a lot of times it's more important to know what that person is specifically, because you can be a moderate liberal, your publication can be a moderate liberal, but the person who got hired was a radical liberal or a conservative even. So whatever, talking wild tangent. I don't really know what I got on, but I'm honestly procrastinating reading this fucking, I swear to God, this looks like the US Constitution. Whatever. Here are some, but definitely not all, of my specific political positions. I oppose racism, including anti-white racism. I oppose racism, including anti-white racism, which I've experienced twice in my life, both times with devastating consequences to me. You can't just say that and not explain what happened. Were you nearly beat to death twice by radical African Americans in like the 1960s and 70s? What the fuck does that mean? Because I would actually totally get if you got almost killed by people who simply attack you because you're white, which has happened. Not nearly as much as it's done to black people, but it has happened, and you wanted to tell a message on how everyone is equal and that you shouldn't be too focused on what the race the person is specifically, and instead how they are as a person. However, you're not. You're just saying words, William. I oppose sexism, including anti-male sexism, which I have also experienced with devastating personal consequences. I can just echo what I said 5 seconds ago. I support equal rights for both genders, example voting, but to oppose today's feminism. Among other evils, feminists now seek to emasculate and punish men for being men and raise boys to be weak and ineffectual. Feminism is funded by the global elites who control the uniparty. So I feel like people say that and don't actually decide to dive in. I do not like modern day feminism, but that isn't why. I really don't think it is. So I have dealt with a lot of people personally who are honestly radical feminists, and I'm not against their beliefs. I think you can believe whatever the fuck you want, and if I'm friends with them, obviously they're not too obnoxious about it. Obviously that isn't their entire person. I think a lot of people get in the mindset like, oh, I don't like gay people or I don't like feminists, because oftentimes when you meet them, it's because they're out there protesting their ideas. The issue is that you probably don't have much friends, or most of your friends only agree with you, right? You get to actually start to get to know a lot of people, you'll find that some of them are feminists or some of them are gay, and that's just a part of them. That's something they think is important to them, but it doesn't dictate their entire being. And then something by them is that I don't get how there's this common sentiment that a lot of feminists try to say that they're creating boys to be weak, and I don't think that's true like at all. I think something that they've actually focused on very recently, in fact, the year or two, they've even hyper-focused on it, is masculinity. And that if you do believe you're a man, that you should have the full right to express your masculinity, and that's something important to you, and not something that you should feel weird about, right? You can look a lot about it, and that's something I've heard a lot, especially as a guy when they've tried to talk to me about it. Now, I should say, I don't have any issue with that. I would say I'm a really confident guy, right? I'd say I give a lot of dude vibes off. So I'm pretty comfortable with masculinity. Tune back next time for another episode of Operation Fuck William. Includes building a great wall along large portions of the southern border,